are tracking a $3 billion mystery in Minnesota's Medicaid system. Lawmakers want better tabs kept on where and how your money is spent.
Leah, the money goes to health maintenance organizations. Now, critics at the state capitol say those HMOs are not scrutinized with detailed audits, and they say that means $3 billion of your tax money is spent in a vacuum of secrecy.
I mean, this idea that we don't know where the money's going, and we have no way of finding it out under the current system. It's a racket.
The chair of the State Senate Health Committee told us he plans to fight to open HMO books.
You just don't leave the cash register drawer open and say, take what you want. And that's what we're doing here.
Dave Feinwalk says it's as simple as this.
What we're saying is, show us the money, show us the books.
He wants HMOs who get billions in tax money to run Minnesota health plans to answer some simple questions.
What did you do with the public money? Who did you pay it to? What did you buy? How much did you pay for what you bought? And what did you keep for yourself?
Feinwalks told us in an exclusive interview that HMOs are not audited, even though the state cuts them a collective check of $3 billion.
Once we give it to them, what happens is a mystery.
Healthcare providers told us they are equally concerned and want the HMOs audited.
It's our taxpayer money. It's the money that, as a nurse, I want used to care for patients and to care for people who need medical care.
You got a big story there. It's a amazing amount of money we're dealing with.
Primarily, what I want to speak with you today is about the issue of transparency and accountability in healthcare. You will see a representation of a black box in the state of Minnesota representing these programs, and indeed this is an accurate depiction of how these programs function. We know how much money we put into these programs, $3 billion. How much of that money is actually spent on medical care? We don't know. How much of that money goes to administrative expense? We don't know. We don't know how much profitability is involved in these programs. There are many, many unanswered questions about these programs, and our purpose here today is to explore some of these issues. As you can see from the next slide on your screen, we don't know if people actually get certain types of health care. We don't know what health care costs. We don't know how much providers are paid, or even if some providers are paid. We don't know what constitutes administrative expense. We don't even know the definitions of administrative expense. Here's what we do know about our public programs. We do know that Minnesota's HMOs were strongly profitable in 2009, which is the most recent data we have. We also know that the strong profitability has occurred year after year after year. We also know that health plans and HMOs seem to make all of their profits from the operation of public programs such as Medicaid. And we also know that on average, health plan surpluses, profits, or reserves are more than 2.5 times the required statutory minimum. The next slide on your screen depicts a basic schematic concept of how the public program operation of healthcare delivery works in the state of Minnesota. It's represented as a triangle. You'll see at the top of the triangle a box that represents the Department of Human Services, or DHS. This is the state agency that's responsible for the operation of programs such as Medicaid and the Prepaid Medical Assistance Program. You'll see at the bottom of the triangle two state agencies, the Minnesota Department of Health and the Minnesota Department of Commerce. Now, the Minnesota Department of Human Services at the top of the triangle 15 years ago outsourced the operation of these programs. They gave them over in large part to HMOs and insurance companies, and so in essence they got out of this business. One of the most important things that we need to consider is there's no competitive bidding in this activity, none whatsoever. Every insurance company vendor who wants to be an administrator for these public programs is allowed to do so. We don't ask them to bid on the work. We don't ask them to submit proposals about how they'll minimize administrative expense, maximize efficiency, provide increased or additional services. We don't do any of this. And this is unique in the way state government purchases other services, because we insist on competitive bidding for everything else we buy and use with our taxpayer dollars. But here, Anyone who wants to be a vendor is permitted to be a vendor, and this is unique in this situation. What should we do in 2011 as our newly elected legislature takes office? Well, we have prepared a laundry list of things that might be considered to address this problem, and they are common sense, simple solutions. The first of which is the state must have information. We must know how these programs operate. We have to know where our tax money is going. Why should we act? In the past, when Minnesota was financially flush, we could afford the luxury of not paying attention. With our current financial crisis and no end in sight, we can no longer afford that luxury. If we can save money on these programs, we can direct that money towards balancing our budget deficit. Or we can provide insurance coverage for people who don't have it now. Or we could do a variety of other equally important policy-directed things with what appears to be an enormous amount of money. We're all in this together. If we want a healthcare system that makes sense, if we want access to healthcare, if we want to balance our financial situation and deal with this huge crisis, we have to tackle these issues.